The Chargers offense has looked much different in 2024, leading to some low passing totals from Justin Herbert, and I've seen some fans being concerned, but it's not time to worry yet because number 10 is still an elite quarterback.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, because we all know 2-0 everydayers are the best kind of everydayers. If your team's not 2-0, I can't relate, but to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, Justin Herbert has thrown for under 300 yards passing through 2 games, which is something that Charger fans are not accustomed to seeing. Is it time to be concerned about Justin Herbert? I don't think so. And for Joey Bosa, could this be his best season ever? All I know is if Joey Bosa stays on the field and is healthy, he will register a double-digit sack season. And is this the best we have ever seen from Rashawn Slater? Man, he has been historically good.
Yeah, man, and that has to be talked about today, because I think especially when you're a great offensive lineman, it leads to not being talked about because you're not the issue. But Rashawn Slater is doing something that is unreal so far. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. David, it is Buy or Sell Tuesday, meaning we're getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions as we do every week. And I think one of the biggest things that I've seen going through the Bolt fam on social media is kind of a split between fans being like, hey, I don't care what Justin Herbert does. Stats-wise, the Chargers are getting wins. And then there's others that are like, hey, it's a little concerning to see Justin Herbert putting up numbers that we've never seen from him before, and not in a great way, or at least as far as the raw statistics go. So the buy or sell here today is this. It is time to worry about Justin Herbert.
Yeah, so for this one, the answer is no, it's not time. So I'm going to sell it. And the reason why it's not time to worry about Justin Herbert is, number one, the Chargers have won both of the games that they've played by double digits, okay? And most of that has been because they've had an extremely potent rushing attack that has been able to really dominate the line of scrimmage and keep the Chargers ahead of these football games. The second thing is, I think he's still placing the ball in good spots and protecting his receivers. I feel like that's something that you have to pay attention to. And also, like, yeah, there's been quite a lot more rushes than there have been passes, but there's been 14 passing first downs, and there's been 15 rushing first downs. So it's still been effective when they have chose to throw the football. And I feel like this balance, at least, probably a little bit swaying more towards the running early on in the season, is only going to help benefit Justin Herbert, because you're going to have to account for the running game and for the passing game. So when they do need to ask Justin Herbert to throw the football more often than he has, hopefully defenses are going to have to respect that the Chargers are going to be able to do both.
Exactly. And I mean, I think, when you're looking at the stats so far this year, it's pretty unremarkable. And even on a kind of snap to snap, throw to throw basis, which I think is the more concerning part, right? Like a career low in yards per attempt, career low in air yards per attempt, meaning he's throwing the ball a shorter distance than he ever has through 2 games, which is obviously a small sample size. And I'm always going to kind of refer back to the 4 seasons where we've already seen this dude be in one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. So I'm selling it as well. I'm not worried about it. It doesn't mean it can't become an issue, right? But as of right now, I think it's easy to kind of forget how just effective he's been when he's throwing the ball. I mean, the fact that he's completing close to 70% of his passes, and there's at least 4 balls the last 2 weeks that probably should have been caught. One of them being a touchdown, which probably changes, I think, a lot of the way his stats look right now. Definitely. And there's so few passes that he's thrown, because that's the other thing. Yes, probably the least passing yards he's ever had over a 2-game span. Also, the least he's ever thrown the ball over a 2-game span in his career. 2 games where he doesn't reach 30 passing attempts has never happened for him in back-to-back games. So I think when you're not throwing the ball as much, those drops make a bigger impact on what your stats are. Those plays become a lot bigger. So I think that that's part of the reason that has some fans concerned. I'm not there yet. I mean, we literally saw him make a play last week that if Eric Tomlinson catches the ball and holds onto it and doesn't fumble it or just drop it, it's probably a top 10 Sports Center play and something that if Patrick Mahomes did, they would still be talking about it today, like at every hour of the day on Sports Center. I mean, getting drugged down, finding a way to throw a perfectly, placed ball to his tight end as he's about to get sacked. Wasn't saying as he's spinning around. It was
basically
nuts.
Horizontal when he threw the ball. It was pretty crazy.
At the same time, though, it's hard to tell yet. It's really hard to say because at some point they're going to need him. And I think that's where this next buy or sell comes from Kerry Jalal, who says buy or sell. The Steelers' defense is almost a mirror image of ours, and the offense will need to prove they can win through the air as well as through the run game this week. Are you buying or selling that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like the Steelers have done great against the run. I mean, against Atlanta, it was only 89 yards rushing. Against Denver, it was 64 yards rushing. So, yeah, the run defenses are pretty similar from that respect. And, yeah, I think there's a good collection of talent on the defensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which we'll get into a little bit later on in the show. But I think as far as these two teams, what's been kind of drastically different between these teams is their ability to run the football. I mean, the Chargers have rushed for 395 yards, which is second most in the NFL, and the Steelers have rushed for 278 yards rushing, which is 12th in the NFL. So the Chargers have been able to be, a lot more effective running the football. And hey, they're going up against a tough test, but the Raiders were a pretty tough test in week 1 as well. And they stayed committed. They didn't have a lot of success in the first half, but it broke down in the second half and they were able to pop those big runs. So yeah, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are definitely going to be more of a formidable test stopping the run. This might be the game where Justin Herbert is going to have to show that he can throw the football and the passing offense can show that they can make plays down the field because this Steelers defense against the run is legitimate. So I think I'm going to buy it. Yeah, I think I'm going to buy it. I think they are pretty similar in that respect.
Yeah, I think I'm going to buy it. And I think she's only talking about the defensive side of things, not really about, which team's running the ball better offensively. I think she's just saying like, hey, this is a good defense where you're probably not going to be able to be one-dimensional, which I would buy 100%. Does that mean that Justin Herbert's going to need to have 300 passing yards? No, but I think that the margins are going to be shrunk. And when the Chargers call upon Justin Herbert to throw the ball, he's going to have to be as good as he's been or better than he's been all season. And I think that's fair to say because, the Steelers are allowing 3.7 yards per carry this year, which is 6th best in the NFL. 4th best as far as rushing yards allowed per game so far this season. So, I think they're going to need their passing game to be better this week than it has been. And they haven't really needed it up until now. So this will be a really, really good test for them. But let's get to this one here from Nick really quick, who says, buy or sell, Quentin Johnston being a top 2 target for Herbo from here on out. Are you buying or selling that?
Yeah, I think I am going to buy it because Quentin Johnston had showed the growth that he's needed in his game to be able to be that guy for him. I think so far he's had 8 receptions on 11 targets, which leads the Chargers 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. 4 of those receptions have gone for first downs, which I think is fantastic. And my favorite of all, 41 of his 89 yards have come after the catch. That's 5.3 yards after the catch per reception. Also, he's already forced 4 missed tackles so far through 2 games. He forced 5 all of last season.
That's awesome.
So that just goes to show you that the Chargers are putting him in position to use his skill set to go out there and make plays for the betterment of himself and the offense.
Yeah, I think I'm probably buying it, I guess. I mean, it's hard because we don't really know what to expect once DJ Chark comes back.
Yeah.
Because those guys were playing the same position, when they've been out there for the Chargers. So Jim Harbaugh said on Monday that he expects DJ Chark to be back soon. Will that eat into it? But the other part of it is I have the most faith in Quentin Johnston to stay healthy more than I do for Ladd McConkey or Josh Palmer as well. So I think I'll buy it. I didn't think I would be here. I think he has a chance to stay healthier than Josh Palmer. I think he's shown you a lot of the improvements that you're looking for. And I think that with the durability that he's shown, with already leading or being tied for the lead with 11 targets with Ladd McConkey through 2 games, I don't think this is crazy at all. I think he could absolutely be top 2 on this team in targets, which is awesome. And I think it's just a testament to how much better he's gotten during this offseason and a testament to how much better this Chargers coaching staff is at using him and putting him, in places where he can succeed. But we still have more to get into because I think Joey Bosa has been ridiculously good through 2 games. And I think he absolutely, I'm buying this 100%, is going to have the most sacks that he's ever had in his career in 2024. So we're going to get into that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about LinkedIn, because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place, because you're not going to find the people that you need to. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And that is definitely what makes LinkedIn different from everywhere else. The way that they separate themselves is the quality of candidate that you get, because you do not want to be trying to fill that role again in only a couple of months. It's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for their hiring. It's the only place you should be using for your hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I also need to tell you guys about Game Time, because if you need tickets to any kind of event, not even just sports, but music, comedy, theater, whatever you're looking for, if you're not going to Game Time, you're doing it wrong, because Game Time is the only place to get your tickets on the secondary market, because they have the Game Time guarantee, which means if you want to do something really big and memorable, and you want to make sure you have a great experience, you go to Game Time, and you're also knowing that you're getting the best price. And another great thing is Game Time now has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite events even easier, because with Game Time Picks, it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They also have all-in pricing, which you can toggle. That means there's no surprises at checkout. The price that you see on those tickets, that great deal that you're seeing, is exactly what you're going to get. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. David, let's continue getting into these buy or sells here with the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. Thank you to everyone who hit us up with your buy or sells on Twitter at LockedOnLAC. We appreciate you guys. We're called into the voicemail on like Athir did, who has a crazy one for us at the end of the show at 323-524-7924. But thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen. I have one here that I came up with, David, that every season you go into kind of feeling like this a little bit. And it's always never about the play on the field, but it's about the health, and it's about Joey Bosa. So the buy or sell here today is Joey Bosa will have his most sacks ever in 2024. Are you buying or are you selling that?
Well, Joey Bosa is on pace for 17 sacks, which would grossly outproduce his career total of 12.5. Obviously, that's probably not going to continue to happen, but
Quentin Johnston's also on pace for 17 touchdowns, right?
Exactly. which I love. That's definitely not going to happen either. But one thing that we can see when we look at Joey Bosa's stats is when he is healthy and when he is on the field, he produces in the sack department. The 3 seasons he's played 16 games, he's eclipsed 10 sacks every single time. So if Joey Bosa is able to stay on the field, I think he absolutely will eclipse that sack total. I feel like the Chargers coaching staff and the medical teams are going to do everything they can to keep Joey Bosa as healthy as possible throughout the season to probably, get, if they need to get him rest, then they get him rest to get him to game time, because they know how impactful of a player Joey Bosa is when he's on the field. He was on the snap count in the last game, and he still scored a sack in limited snaps. So I think for Joey Bosa, it's all about health, and I think they're going to do a better job of keeping him on the field, which means that I feel like he will eclipse that 12.5 sack number, so I'm buying it.
Yeah, I think he passes that too, because I also, even though he's on pace for 17 sacks, it does feel like we're within a few games of him just kind of erupting for like a 2 or 3 sack game too, right? So I don't know if he's going to have a sack in every single game, but I do think he's going to get some in bunches too, where, he has a couple good games that give him, 4 or 5 sacks over a 2-game span. I don't think is crazy at all with the level that we're seeing him play at. And I think the other big part of this is him playing less snaps, maybe not as little as he did last game, but him playing less snaps because of the depth that he has behind him could keep him fresher. And it could be a situation where he plays less snaps and still gets more sacks. Because if you all remember, Brandon Staley's philosophy as far as having elite edge defenders, we're going to play them 90% of the snaps every game. It's a very different philosophy now. But as he showed you, he only played 14 snaps in that last game. Only 10 of those were pass rushing snaps, and he still found a way to notch a sack. So I think that for him putting up a 14, 15 sack year and a season where hopefully you get 15 to 16 games out of him isn't crazy at all. I just really want to see what a full year looks like so bad.
Please.
You can tell the work that he's put in. I think the difference this year so far has been, hey, he's been banged up. He broke his damn hand. Yeah. He already, hurt something in his back in week 1. Yet they managed it well. He still got to play in this last game while not needing him to be a Superman type of player and be out there for the entire game. And he was still able to be productive. And as is forgotten many times, still an absolute monster against the run. He's the elite of the elite. He's been one of, if not the best pass rusher in the NFL so far this season when he's been out there in his limited snaps. So let's get to the next one here from Chris Saiz, who says, buy or sell, both Asante Samuel Jr. and Christian Fulton will be re-signed to contracts based on their recent play. David, both of these guys in the last year of their contract, in the case of Christian Fulton, it is a 1-year contract. Are you buying or selling that the Chargers can lock both of these guys up for 2025 and beyond?
Well, when you look at the prospective cap space for the Chargers going forward, they should have the money to be able to do so. That is definitely something that they would be able to do if they want to do it. I think for Asante Samuel Jr., this is somebody that the Chargers know. They drafted. He's a homegrown player. He's been pretty solid. I don't think he's been ever been super spectacular outside of that playoff game for the first half against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I think he's been a solid corner, and I think so far it's been okay. 9 receptions on 12 targets, 82 yards, and a pass breakup. Christian Fulton, on the other hand, has been disgustingly good. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's 2 receptions on 5 targets for 1 single yard.
Yeah, that's
and
insane.
A pass breakup. And he's been stuck on these receivers like glue. I mean, he has been all over them. They have had absolutely no separation. It's been spectacular to watch. It's a revenge season for Christian Fulton. Like, he wants to show everybody that he is a top corner in this league. And by far, through 2 games, he has been one of the steals of this offseason for the Chargers. To come in for the Chargers to have that much trust in Christian Fulton to automatically basically make him one of their starting corners is paying massive dividends with his play so far. So I think for Christian Fulton, he is absolutely working his way into another contract with the Chargers. So I'm going to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, you're buying that both of them are getting re-signed?
I think I'm going to buy it more so on Christian Fulton.
Okay, well, that's a sell then, right? Because that's one, right? This is specifically asking about both, which I don't think is going to happen. I think the hard thing is because you're seeing the results of what can happen if you just play free agency, right? And it's a sketchy thing, a risky thing to do, trying to find a cheap veteran to have a bounce back season and to go out there and be your best corner, which is what Christian Fulton has been able to do. I mean, I said before the season, I think he's going to be CB1 for this team, and people thought I was nuts. We were saying, how can you give up an Asante Samuel Jr. like that? He's given up 2 catches for 1 yard. That is insane. Just for anyone who didn't hear it, right? That's crazy. He's tackling better. Yeah. The coverage is all the way back. The craziest part is he might not even be the best former Tennessee Titan in that secondary right now because Elijah Molden has been so damn good. That's just
great pickups.
Where this team is at right now. But yeah, the other part of it that plays into it is the compensatory pick formula, right? One of these guys, maybe both these guys, are going to get somewhat lucrative deals. It's always hard when you have guys that are doing it for one really good season after, down seasons or mediocre seasons. Yeah. So I don't think either of these guys is going to go into this next market demanding $20 million plus per season. We'll see. Neither one of these guys has an interception yet. So obviously if one of those guys puts up an insane number there, they could get themselves in line, right, for a very, very hefty contract. Yeah, I'm selling it. I don't think both of them. I think one of them for sure could get re-signed. And I think just for the fact that you don't want to go into 2025 with no former kind of starting corners in that lineup still, outside of Jasir Taylor, who's also been very, very good so far this year. Super impressed with what these corners have been able to do. David, let's get this one in real quick. This is from Jake. And I think this is what the buy or sell is. The Chargers are tackling so far in 2024 better than you've ever seen them tackle before. Let's get it quickly. Are you buying or selling that?
Well, I mean, when you look at the stats, it's a sell because they have 8 missed tackles through 2 games, which, is not great. But what I think is definitely the difference.
Missed tackles on average per game. They have 16 missed tackles.
Right, on average per game. But what they are doing is swarming to the football, which I think makes it look a lot different. And they've had some very good open field tackling as well.
I mean, there's 10 players that have played at least 20 snaps for the Chargers this year that have 0 missed tackles so far this year. We were talking about before, really the only outsized number on the roster is Denzel Perryman, who always has had somewhat of a missed tackle problem. If he just had longer arms, he'd be, a much more sound tackler. He's getting himself in the right position. But, yeah, I mean, the tackling does feel different, and that's a huge, huge reason why this Chargers defense has felt so improved. Surprisingly, they're on pace this year to have more missed tackles than they were last year, but percentage-wise, open field tackling, the amount of guys that are right there to step up after a missed tackle and guys holding up guys so another guy can come finish the job has been better than I have seen in recent memory for sure. But there's still way more to get into on this Buy or Sell Tuesday, including why this is the best version of Rashawn Slater that we've seen yet, which is an insane thing to say from a dude who's already made an all-pro team. So we're going to get into that and a Thier's crazy voicemail coming up on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, David, I need to tell everyone about FanDuel. I know you guys have heard a lot of us talking about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, but they have something a little different because right now through September 22nd, it's not too late. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And I don't know if anyone saw that there was actually a Deca box, a box that had, I think, 10 games in it, or maybe I should learn from the Thunder Down Under podcast. Maybe that's 12, but they had 10 boxes of games going on NFL Sunday Ticket last week because there were so many games in that early window the Chargers were playing in. 10 boxes of football going on at the same time. I don't know if there's anything I need to sell more than that, but with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. But for the first time this season, David, the Chargers are going into this game as underdogs. The Steelers are favored by 1.5 points at home at the, former Heinz Field. It'll always be Heinz Field to me. But this is interesting. They're telling us right now it's going to be a test, and I'd say that the 36.5 over-under is telling you it's going to be a slugfest in this one. But if you guys want to get on the action, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. David, it's time to get into the rest of our buy or sells here, and we have to talk about Rashawn Slater, who by the simple kind of merit of just being so great this season, we haven't talked about him nearly as much as we should have. He's been unreal. And I think a lot of people, after kind of him battling through injuries last year, may have forgotten just how good this dude is when he was right, but we have not. So we're going to talk about that, but I do want to make sure that all of our everydayers know that we're thankful for you making us your first listen. But if you need a second listen, make sure to check out the new lineup at Locked On NFL, who's now putting out 2 shows a day. But the one big difference from Locked On NFL than other national shows is they're getting people who cover their teams every single day to come on and help them. So you can get the madman Tyler Rowland in the morning and get that espresso shot of NFL content, or you can go with my man Tony Wiggins in the barbershop and get some real life NFL talk. But make sure you guys check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your guys' podcast from. David, here is the buy or sell today. Rashawn Slater is the best version of Rashawn Slater that we've seen yet.
Yeah, this is a simple buy. It's an easy one for me. Just watching him in the running game. I mean, we've always been able to see what kind of a technician he is as a pass protector. It's been something that has always been on display. I think maybe people have forgotten a little bit just because he played through a high ankle sprain last year, which, anytime you're playing hurt.
I think he had 2 ankle sprains. I think at one point both of his ankles were sprained, which is insane to play through.
Which is crazy, but he was still out there, still playing and still blocking his butt off for everybody. But this year, it's been just ridiculously different. Okay, through 2 games, 54 pass blocking snaps, Rashawn Slater has allowed 1 pressure.
Yeah.
1 pressure. I'm not talking about a sack. I'm talking 1 single pressure. And not only that, but his run blocking grades have been spectacular. And he was a true road grader against the Carolina Panthers. Like, they were dominant on that left side. They were opening up cavernous holes, and he was loving it. I remember one play in particular where he finished his defender to the ground and just literally threw him down like a child, which was just beautiful to watch. That's when Rashawn Slater's at his best. He's going forward. He's manhandling people. He's using that athleticism, that great technical prowess. Rashawn Slater is, if he keeps this up, he might be the all-pro, first team all-pro for the left tackle position this season.
Yeah, I'm buying it. I think this could be the year that he enters best tackle in the league stratosphere.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think he's putting himself up there. Like Trent Williams up until this point has the body of work where it's him and then everybody else.
Sure.
I mean, he's the Patrick Mahomes, basically, of
the left
NFL
tackle
offensive tackles. So like, but like Rashawn Slater is playing at that level. Like, can he sustain it for a full season is fair. But so far, it's been crazy. I mean, let's talk about his rookie year, right? Because if you're talking about the best version he's ever had, he made an all-pro team as a rookie, second team all-pro, 2 Trent Williams at left tackle. He gave up 26 pressures that year. Right now, he's on pace to give up 8.5 pressures for the season and 0 sacks. Obviously, when you're doing these season-long kind of, projections like that based on a 2-game sample size, it's all going to be a little bit skewed. But like, they played against like Jadeveon Clowney and Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins. Like, it's not like they haven't played anyone yet, right?
Yeah, some real dogs.
Absolutely. And I think the most impressive thing to me was just the insane push that they were able to get behind Rashawn Slater in that last game. I mean, they were just moving people and opening up holes that I haven't seen from this Chargers team in a very, very long time. And I just think, people have forgotten how good Rashawn Slater is. He's put out a pretty good reminder over these first couple of weeks. But let's get to this next buy or sell here, talking about the offensive line, which is this. Buy or sell, the Steelers will be the toughest test yet for this offensive line, which I think, David, in most scenarios, that's not even a question. But you're talking about an offensive line that's already gone up against Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins, a pretty dominant duo in their own right.
Yeah, I mean, those are a couple of really solid guys. And then, of course, went up against Jadeveon Clowney in week 2 against the Panthers. But when you're looking at the Steelers, they have 3 guys that can legitimately get after the quarterback. So I'm going to buy it. I mean, it's TJ Watt. Obviously, we know TJ Watt is an absolute demon. I mean, 2 sacks, 4 hits, 6 pressures. But he also has a pretty good running mate on the other side in Alex Highsmith, who has a sack and 5 pressures himself. And they have the interior pressure with Cam Hayward, which I don't really like Cam Hayward very much. But 1 sack, 8 pressures allowed. He's a quality football player, and he has been for a very, very long time. So 2 pass rushers on the outside and an interior pass rusher that can make your life a living hell. This is definitely the toughest test for the Chargers to date.
And I'm sure we'll be continuing to talk about it this week, crossover Thursday, keys for success and stuff. A lot of it's going to be focused around how this offensive line holds up against this test. I mean, Max Crosby is so good. He is up there as one of the best edge rushers in the league with a TJ Watt, with a Micah Parsons, with a Nick Bosa, with a Myles Garrett. They're all in the same tier for the most part. But when TJ Watt's brother is JJ Watt and there's an actual conversation about which one of those dudes is better, that's insane. I mean, the dude's won the defensive player of the year multiple times. He's a different level, and it's going to be the biggest test the Chargers have faced so far. But that is the biggest difference, right? In that first game, Malcolm Kuntz couldn't play. So the Raiders didn't have that opposite guy of Max Crosby to take some pressure off of him. They have 2 legitimate guys, like you said. Their interior defensive line is really, really deep because I'm talking about guys like Keanu Benton and other guys they have in the interior there. This is going to be their biggest test for sure. They have 33 pressures so far over 2 games. They're just a much deeper front as well. It's going to be a huge test, and I think it's so great that the Chargers are going into this, I think, with one of the better 2-game stretches from any of their offensive lines that we've seen in a long time. It felt like, obviously, against a lesser defensive line, Carolina, they were dominant. So hopefully they can do enough against Pittsburgh. But Athir called in for his buy or sell, and if Athir calls in, we get him on the show. Let's hear what craziness he has for us this week.
Dan, David, this is your boy Athir. Buy or sell Tuesday. The AFC North, a.k.a. AFC Juggernaut, is trash after 2 weeks. And the Chargers will go 4-0 this year. I'm buying it. What do you say? Dan, explain. Love you.
Athir, why are you coming after me? What did I do? I mean, when we were talking about AFC juggernauts, I wasn't talking about just the AFC North, right? I mean, the juggernauts of the Chiefs and the Bills and, the Bengals and the Ravens have their case there too. But, I mean, there's no doubt about that the AFC North is known for its toughness. Jim Harbaugh said it in his press conference on Monday. We're going to know what we're made of after the Steelers game. 4-0 inside that division, David, even though you have 2 0-2 teams in there right now with the Ravens and the Bengals. To me, I'm selling that. That's a tough task, I would say.
I agree. I think that all of those teams are beatable, for sure. I think that we've seen that at least with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're 2-0, but look at the opponents that they've gone up against. I mean, it's not like they're going up against world beating
Sure, the
offenses or
Falcons just beat the
quarterbacks.
Eagles on Monday Night Football, right? I mean, they could be
Yeah,
a pretty good team.
yeah, for sure. But 4-0, nah, I'm not gonna buy that. I mean, the Bengals were a couple plays away from beating the Chiefs, so I still think that there's quite a bit of talent in that division, and you
Yeah.
can't take any of those teams lightly.
Every one of those games is going to be tough. I mean, the Ravens and the Bengals are both better than they've shown in their 0-2 starts. Both of them have almost beat the Chiefs, and both of one of their two losses is the best team in the NFL, which is the Chiefs. So hard to hold that against them, but also both of them have two bad losses, right? The Bengals lost to the Patriots. The Ravens lost to the Raiders last week.
Yeah.
The Browns, terrible quarterback situation, but are always going to bring a good running game. Nick Chubb might be back by the time they play that game too, which is scary, obviously. Deshaun Watson doesn't scare me at all for any on-the-field reasons. But I think that as far as the rest of the AFC North goes, every game's going to be tough. Hey, 3-1 with how good this team's playing right now, I wouldn't
I'll
even
take
have... I don't even know if I thought that was possible before the season started, but I'm starting to come around on it because if the Chargers can meet these teams physically and not get manhandled the way they always have in years past, they're going to give themselves a good chance. They always play well against the Steelers. They usually play well against the Bengals as well. The Ravens, they're going to get up for that one under John Harbaugh and Jim Harbaugh Bowl. I think that the Browns might be the easiest of those games to win. So I think they'll do better than they have in years past against the North. I'm not ready to go 4-0 yet, Ethier, but I still love you for calling in and saying it. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. The good news is the everydayers have a chance to get on the show tomorrow as well when we do our Chargers mailbag. You can hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnLAC or call into the voicemail line like Ethier did at 323-524-7924 and give us a 30-second Chargers question. To make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on our Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. David and I also post the show to our accounts every day. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogmeyer at Dro Talk SD. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow and get in on the action. And until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.